So till now what we have done in Spring Security is we have just added the dependency. Okay, so we added the security dependency, security starter, and with that what happened is Spring has given us a form based authentication. So just by merely adding this dependency, we have got the default authentication mechanism by Spring is that whenever we try to hit, so whenever we start our application, Spring will give us a password. Okay, that will be some alphanumeric password, and then we have to give the user as user and password copied from the console. So whenever we try to hit an API, Spring will first open a login form, okay, in which it will ask us to enter the username and password. So, and we have to enter that credentials. Okay, so we'll have to enter username as user and password as whatever we see on the console. Okay, so if you don't want to use this password generated by Spring, then we can go into the application properties and set our own username and password. Okay, so we can set our own username and we can set our own password. Okay, so if you can set that. But what if I have multiple users? What if I have multiple users and I want to log in with multiple users? For that, then we'll have to configure our own security. Okay, so it is just a configuration. So in Spring, if you want to do the security part, you just have to do some configuration. There's not much of coding in it. Just you have to configure some classes. Okay, so for that, what Spring has given us is a class called as Authentication Manager. Okay, so Spring has a inbuilt class called as Authentication Manager. And this class Authentication Manager has a method called as authenticate. Okay, it will do our authentication. Okay, so it has a method called as authenticate, and this method, if the user credentials are right, it will return us true, and if the user credentials are incorrect, it will throw some exception. Okay, but we cannot directly interact with the authentication manager. So in between this, so let's say this is the user, this is the user, that is the programmer who's coding the Spring Boot application. Okay, this is the programmer. So programmer cannot directly interact with the authentication manager. Okay, so we do not have direct access to the authentication manager class. Okay, so in between we have a authentication manager builder. So we will access the authentication manager via a class called as authentication manager builder. Okay, so via this we will access this, and this authentication manager builder So what we have to do is will help us to access the authentication manager. So how do we get hold of this authentication manager builder? So the user, this is the end user. What the end user will do is, okay, what the end user will do is he will create a user defined class. Okay, he will create a user defined class. So whatever name you want to give to the user defined class, okay, let's say you give it as web security. This is up to the user, up to the programmer, whatever name he gives. Okay, this web security class we have to make use of, we have to extend the class. Okay, that is called as web security configure adapter. Web security configurer adapter. So now once we extend this class has a method called as configure. This class has a method called as configure, and this configure method takes this authentication manager as an argument. So it will take this, some you can make any variable of it. So I name it as auth. So this configure method will take the authentication manager builder as an argument, and then the user can interact with this his own created class. So this is how we set up the Spring security in our application. Is this understood so far?
Yes, sir.
So as a programmer, there is no direct access to the authentication manager. So we cannot directly authenticate. So we'll go via this process. So what is our job now? So our job as a programmer, okay, it is more of a configuration job. So there's no business logic involved in this. Okay. So first thing what we will do is, if we are using the default the default username in our properties file, first remove that. Okay. So whatever you default username and default password which we are using in the properties file, first thing first eliminate that, because we will not be using that, because it will give priority to this. So if it is this is configured directly, it will go over here and ask for the, and will match with this condition, and I don't want to use them. So first thing first, delete this. So what we have to do in our application is now just do this setting. So first thing first, what you can do is go and make a security package. So go to your application and make a new package by the name security. Okay. So I better take an existing package and just rename the last keyword. Okay. And in this security, I'll go and create my class. Okay. So we have imported. Okay. Before that, what we have to do? We have to import the dependency which we have already done. Okay. The security dependency already imported, right? Yeah, starter security already imported. Then second step was, whatever is there in the application properties, if you're using any password, remove them. So in your application YAML, you are not using, okay, so here you are using Spring security username and Spring security password, remove them. Okay, so you can comment that. Better we delete it only. I don't want to delete it. Maybe if I want to use it later on, then I'll comment this. So these two things we need to do beforehand. Then go to the security and then make your own class. Okay, whatever name you wish to give to your class, you can give. Okay, so let's say you're giving security configuration. So these are more of a configuration job, right? Security configuration. So this R class will do what now? Our class will extend web security configurer adapter. So right over here, extends control space bar web security configurer adapter. Okay, so this class is deprecated. Okay, so in the latest version of Springs, maybe they have used some other mechanism. So it is showing over here like this. So don't need to worry about that. Okay, and in this, what we have to override? We have to override which function? We have to override the function called as configure, and the configure which is taking authentication manager builder as an argument. So it has many methods. So how do you check the methods in that class? Just go to the empty space inside the class and hit control space bar. Hit control space bar. Control space bar. Okay, so it will give you all the methods which are there in this web security configure adapter class. So from that we have to choose which configure. See, there's one configure for HTTP web security. There is one configure for HTTP security, and there is one configure for authentication manager builder. So we will take this one. Okay, remove the super. We are not calling any method of the parent class. Okay, and now as this object is their auth, now we will just configure this auth object. Okay, and we are using in memory management. Okay, see, we can have you can authenticate the user from the database also. So you have a database and you will have all the details of the user in that database. So it's in the database table, you have the users table. Okay, so in this table, whatever entries are there, username, password, so you can authenticate from there also. But here I am not using anything from the database. I am not connecting to the database. I am using in memory. So I will just give to the database over here only. So whatever data is there inside your program, that is called as in memory. So if I create any array list, linked list, and store some username details over there, that is called as in memory data. Okay, so I'll be using in memory authentication. So I have to auth dot, so it has over here in memory authentication, and here I can pass my whatever user I want. So now this will use a builder pattern. So this will configure, this configurer method will use the builder pattern to configure. We work with the builder pattern, right? So just keep on adding dot. So this will work. So now dot with user I want, so I will say with user. So here with user, so whatever username you want to give. Okay, so we had given Alice last time, right? Let's give a numpty, and with password what you want, so give a dot and give a password. Okay, and here you can give enum1234. This is the password. Okay, you can also specify what role this user is, admin user. Okay, so you can specify dot role also, or dot authentication rather, you can give the authorities. Okay, so this has authority of admin, and then give a semicolon. Okay, but now see, we are able to use see the password. Okay, this is called as clear text. Okay, so we are able to see the password. Okay, so once this application is launched, this password will be seen. So you want to hide the password, encode the password. Okay, for that we have a bean called as password encoder. Okay, so we need to create a bean which will encode this password for us. So directly what you can see is public and password encoder. So this will do this password encoding for us. Password encoder, okay, and just give any method, get password encoder, whatever you want to give to encode that password. And what will this return? And as of now we are not doing much of encoding, so there is no op password encoder. Just return a instance of this. So this also is deprecated. Maybe in the latest Spring versions they might be using some different way of doing this authentication. So now our code is ready, our configuration is ready. So this is more of a configuration class, right? So you can put the @configuration annotation over here. Okay, it's more of a configuration class. That's all. That's all we have to do. Okay, now let's try to run our application and see how it responds. Run. Started on port 8083 and I'll just hit the welcome endpoint. Let's try 8083/SBI welcome. Okay, so it will invoke this default mechanism of Spring security, that is form based authentication, but here now I will authenticate on my own behalf, right? So username is enumtech and password is enum1234. enumtech or enum1234, yes. enumtech enum1234, yeah. Why is it not accessing it? Okay, we have to create a bean of this, guys. We have to create a bean of this. This we have to create a bean. So give @bean annotation to this. Okay, yeah, create a bean of this password encoder. Remember. Okay. Now run your application. Now it should take our settings. Okay, let's keep simple nums. Okay, let's not make matters complicated for us. So it will never take your text in plain text, clear text. It will always try to encode it. This is the simplest mechanism to encode your password. It also gives you a feature of logout. Okay, so as it gives you login feature, it also gives you feature of logout. So if you want to log out from the application, you can click on logout and it will ask you to log out. Yes, and then now again if you wish to log in, hit the endpoint which you are trying to hit, and it will try to log us in, and ABC, and now you are able to access the endpoint. Like this you can authenticate your user. Okay, what if I have multiple users then? So you can just put a logical operator and in this what we put is we put a and like this. okay, and then repeat your set of users like this. Okay, so you go to the auth manager, and like this you can repeat the set of users. Okay, so now let me make this as user. Yeah. No, so there won't be any semicolon over here, right? So like this. So ABC, and now so this will have user privilege, and ABC will be my admin. So we can restrict what all endpoints ABC can access and what all endpoints XYZ can access. That we can restrict. That is called authorization. Okay, this is what we're doing is authentication. So I make changes to the application, do a rerun, and now I have two users who can access my application. Okay, so when I was using the properties file, I could only give one user. Now I can give as many users along with their roles. So now if I come here, now it is already logged in, right? So what do you go to the endpoint and call the logout function. This, the Spring Security gives you this by default, login logout. Ask the user to log out. Now you can hit whichever endpoint you were trying to hit. You were try to hit this endpoint, but now with the another user. So XYZ and XYZ, and this user can also access the endpoint. So like this, I have created the username and password in memory. So this is called as in memory authentication. Getting it, guys? Okay. So they are.
Yes.
This is the simplest way of in memory authentication. Otherwise, you can also create a class of in memory authentication and do that, but that is a bit more lengthy. Okay, that is a bit more tedious job. So if we try using with that, okay, so this is one way. There are many other ways. Okay, so then another is in memory user details manager. Okay, in memory user details manager. Okay, of that we can create a class, whatever you want to give, user details. Okay, so new. Okay, to this you can add whatever users you want to give. So you have user details, one class you have user details. Okay, so if you're fetching the data from the database, then we will do that management over here. So as of now I am using in memory, so I will just create a users over here. So user one. Okay, and we have our user over here. Here is a class called as user dot, and then now you got to set whatever you are setting over here. So you are setting with password, right? First we are setting with user, so you can say with username. So what was the username? ABC. Then you can set its password, so keep on chaining dot password ABC. And then what was the authorities? Okay, so we just use the builder pattern over here. So we have been using, right? So with, so this is how we use the builder pattern, correct? What was the authority given to it? What was source? Admin. And then you can call the build function to complete the pattern. So one user is ready. One user is ready. Like this you can create multiple users. User 2, okay, XYZ, XYZ, and this is a user, and you have build them. Now you got to add them to the user details, whatever we have created. User details you have created over here, right? Add them over there. Okay. User details dot function called as create user. Create user and the object over there user 1 and the object over there user 2. Like this you can create n number of users. Okay. And now to this authentication, to this auth, how you directly we were adding direct to auth like previous time. Now we have to add this to the auth now. So auth that user detail service. It is user detail service and add this as an argument over there. User details. Yeah. So now as we are giving password as clear text, we need some mechanism to encode that password. This is the simplest mechanism which will help us encode the password. Okay. So you can also do this way also. So let's try to run it with this way and check. Last time we had given ABC and XYZ. Now let's try to give A and B and see if it is taking it from here, that there is no confusion like from where it is picking up. Application is started. Let's go, and first you need to log out, right? First you need to log out. This user is logged in, so call the log out this user. Now go to our endpoint, which endpoint we want to access first. Okay, don't directly log in. First access which endpoint you want to use. You want to use this endpoint. It will automatically call the login form. Spring security will automatically invoke the login form. So as I hit this, and now I want to go to my, so AAA and AAA is working fine. Okay, like this you can do. So you got to understand this concept. So we are configuring the authentication manager builder with the auth object, and it is now so the authentication manager builder communicates with the authentication manager class. So if you go inside and check the authentication manager builder, this will have some links with the authentication manager. Okay, see over here. So it is interacting with the authentication manager, and we don't have to do that. Right? It is their private job internally how they do it. Okay, they have many methods internally for all those authentication, which returns you a boolean value whether when it is true, and some exception if it is invalid user. Okay, so this was a simple in memory authentication. Then